All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get it into today's Flyers Talk Live as we are discussing the breaking news. This just in this morning. I believe this came from Gina Han of the Philly Inquirer, but the news that a lot of us have been waiting for has come true. Chuck Fletcher, in fact, fired by the Philadelphia Flyers, effected immediately this morning. And in return, the news is that Danny Briere will fill in as the interim GM for the time being. This is obviously something that we have all been waiting for. There was a lot of skepticism because we're wondering why was it that Chuck Fletcher was still, in fact, being in charge of the day-to-day operations, simply because of the fact that he was just terrible. He was terrible at what he was doing. But it happens here today. He's no longer here, and the state of this organization still is in limbo and still is in flux. We do know Danny Briere is in charge for right now, and I do understand that a lot of Flyers fans are happy about that because it's someone with a fresh mind, and Danny Briere is Danny Briere. He's a fan favorite. And he's young, and there is a thought that he might bring some new ideas. For me personally, I'm not saying that I don't want Danny Briere, and I say this with all due respect. I do want someone else here involved with trying to build up this team again. I do understand that Danny Briere has gone through the bumps and the bruises. He's been through the organization. He's learned from a lot of people. Lastly, with Chuck Fletcher's probably not the mentor that you want to give to Danny Briere. But I also do believe that you want Danny Briere to handle the scouting, handle the player development. You also want to bring in someone who's going to handle the books, handle a lot of the day-to-day operations, the business side of the shenanigans, and build the core and the foundation of this hockey team. John Tortorella is obviously doing a good job of stripping it down, bare bones, and trying to build it up. Right, we're in development process. We're in evaluation process. We're trying to see what we have, what we can move forward for the future. And so I think that someone else needs to come in here and help Danny Briere. But Chuck Fletcher, this is going to be one of those GM tenures in Philadelphia that you kind of Billy King compare it to like Billy King, compare it to Nick Sakevich down with the Philadelphia Union, But when it comes to Chuck, we have to understand the beginning of it. He was brought in here as the first GM who had nothing to do with the Flyers organization. They decided to bring in someone who's got experience in National Hockey League, and that's pretty much why they brought in Chuck Fletcher. And obviously, Chuck had Minnesota consistent for a decade while he was the GM. Obviously, they didn't win many playoff games, but yeah, making the playoffs, I guess, for the Comcast ownership group, that was good enough, and that's why they brought him in here. So you bring him in here in 2018, or was it like the end of 2018? And obviously, they fired Dave Haxel. Was like 17 games into him being the GM. Ryan Gordon finishes that year. The following year, he brings in Alain Vigneault, and that was the high point of the Chuck Fletcher era. And it leaves us a lot of the time wondering, what could have exactly happened if things would have panned out, if things didn't happen, if things would have happened differently, and more importantly, if COVID didn't happen. Because the Flyers heading into that run were 41-27-7, or that season. So that season with COVID involved, they were 41-21-7. They were one win away from the Eastern Conference Finals. And to the point now where we're discussing Alain Vigneault fired a year later after that playoff run. Chuck Fletcher fired here today. And a bunch of players that were on that team, future is so uncertain right now. And it's just crazy how we've gotten to that place. Now, the big reason why we got to that place, Chuck Fletcher mismanaging this roster. In his first full offseason, He trades for Kevin Hayes, signs him to a long-term deal, and at the time it looked good. But now when you look at it in 2023, now we're looking at parting ways with him, right? The Rasmus Ristolainen trade, that was a bad one. You took away your draft pick in 21. Risto has had a bounce-back year, but you're going to sit here and tell me he was worth the package that he was? Obviously, the Ryan Ellis move was terrible, and that's one of the moves that has set back this organization deeply. When you were trying to bank on the fact that he was going to be the future with Ivan Provorov. That's what's going to take us to the Stanley Cup. And he probably will never, ever suit up again for the Flyers. All we have is 5 years of that beard. Tony DeAngelo. What was the point of that? 2 years, $10 million as well to add on top of that. So the trades are bad. The contracts are even worse. Giving big contracts to Travis Sanheim, big contracts to Rasmus Ristolainen. Players just can't stay healthy. And then the worst part about it is you still stick with the same plan. Sean Couturier, Ryan Ellis. Those guys can't stay healthy. So we're just going to keep running it back? Come on. The best ability is availability. That's something that Chuck never understood. Just because Sean Couturier, when he's fully healthy, is one of the best two-way centers in the league, that doesn't help if he can't stay healthy. Ryan Ellis, Ivan Provorov, in theory, would have worked great, but he can't stay healthy. And to Ivan Provorov, player development has been a problem. This guy's slowly declined as these years gone on. And obviously controversial. He stirred up the pot this year during Pride Night. And so, we're at where we're at because of just a multitude of just mismanagement. We all talk about the Johnny Gaudreau miss, but the reason why we were upset by that, or the reason why I was upset by that, wasn't because we didn't get Johnny. It's because we were put in that situation. You can't sign him because you're in cap hell because you mismanaged the books. You mismanaged your eyes and your talent eyes, and that's kind of where we're at right now. 24, 30, and 11 is this hockey team. Chuck Fletcher, in what we're saying, 4.5 seasons, 3.5 seasons. Chuck Fletcher is a total of 141, 144, and 43. Most of the time, general managers do not even get that leeway. And that's kind of where we're at as well. And continuing to that player development, Cam York, Tyson Forrester, and Cutter Gauthier were the three three first-round draft picks in the Chuck Fletcher era. Cam York obviously had his bumps and bruises, but, he's going to be part of this future, and he's still growing. Wait to see what I'm still waiting out to see. I'm still having hopes for Cam York. Obviously, it's not looking so bright right now. Tyson Forrester just got called up because Tony DeAngelo's a fucking dumbass, and so we're gonna. I did not get to watch last night's game, but we're gonna see what we have from Tyson Forrester. Obviously, the thought process is win with Lehigh Valley, right? So that's been a big part of it. Obviously, Cutter Gauthier is doing a really good job with Boston College, or Boston University. So we're gonna have to wait and see until he gets here. But at the end of the day, Chuck Fletcher, I think that the game has passed him. And I also think that Chuck Fletcher is just not, how do I put this? He's not aggressive. I think that he's easily walked over. I think at the end of it, I think everyone just kind of found him to be a joke. The JVR trade deadline situation, I think that was really the last straw for this organization. Because at the end of the day, John Tortorella can defend him. The media can defend him. But you're talking about the one piece that has value. And you're willing to put up money to allow him to go somewhere else. And you can't even get a 5th-round pick. I find that very hard to believe. Very, very hard to believe. And if that's the case, you should have taken it. And clearly that was the last straw. Because a week later, we're talking about his firing. I think it is extremely, extremely telling. So the problem right now here, as we're moving forward, we got to move on from Chuck Fletcher. Now we can finally say that. And obviously, listen, that is a plus. That is a plus. That is a step. It took a little bit too long, but the fact is it's been done. But Flyers fans can't think easily. You can't be eased at mind because of the fact that this organization stuck with Chuck Fletcher so long. So now we don't even trust the organization. Because if you're willing to trust Chuck Fletcher for this long, Chuck Fletcher has no business being even the general manager this year, then how are we going to trust you to put together an organization that can win? We hear you. You said that you want to win a championship. That is your goal. But you're making everything more complicated for yourself. As we move forward, you need to find someone who understands how the NHL works in 2023 and beyond. Not someone who understands how the game worked in 2000s. And I think that's why Danny Briere is here. I think Danny Briere is a very, very smart person. And I think that he can bring fresh, new ideas. But I think overall, this organization needs to bring fresh minds. The game is going to become a little more analytical. the game is more a little bit of everything. You do need some physicality, and obviously the Flyers understood that, but you still need skill. You still need speed. You still need talent. And those are things that the Flyers just are kind of lacking at the moment. So obviously, we're in evaluation period, but it is hard to be positive. I talk about it and I always compare it to the Sixers. The reason why I was able to get down with the process is because there was a plan in place and it was clearly detailed. And I can get down with that because I understood how the NBA worked. And that's the only way we were going to get out of the mediocrity that we were in for a decade. But for the Flyers, I just don't feel that same sense of, I guess, gratitude or gratification because I don't know what they're doing. I don't trust what they're doing. You know, they're just going to keep selling me gritty and alumni nights. Like, that's great, but that's not going to get the fan base going, unfortunately. So it is kind of what it is. We're going to have to move forward. We'll see what comes about it. Apparently, there's going to be more front office cleanup. So we'll wait to see what does happen. But breaking news here, Chuck Fletcher is gone. We had to talk about this real quick. It is a crazy Philly sports day with the Eagles as well. And we're also getting ready for the Union and getting ready for Parcero weekend. So, guys, it's going to do it for today's edition of Flyers Talk Live. Appreciate you guys coming on in here for just this quick one. Let me know your thoughts about the Chuck Fletcher firing in the comment section. Make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe for more Philly sports. And until next time, I go by the name of Parcero Philly, and I'm telling you guys, let's go Philly sports. And thank you for firing him finally.